Good afternoon, this is the happy time. This is the children's classic fairy tales. Beautiful stories, beautifully written, historically annotations, which I will begin with those before I read the story. I'll do it in two separate parts, telling you about it. I've chosen this one because I personally love it. The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. I'm not going to read it yet. I'm going to read all the information which the children who are going to listen to this are old enough to understand. It's not really, this version is not really for the small ones. It's for the older ones with critical thinking and understanding, and I do hope you're going to enjoy it. So this is chapter 26, and from Hans Christian Andersen, Den lille havfru in every fortaling forborn Copenhagen, C.A. Reitzel, 1837. Cruelty and violence have often been seen as the trademark of German fairy tales, but P.L. Travers, the author of the Mary Poppins books, found Hans Christian Andersen to be a master in the art of torture. How much rather would I see wicked stepmothers boiled in oil, she declared, than bear the protracted agony of the Little Mermaid, or the girl who wore the red shoes. For Andersen, suffering is the badge of spiritual superiority, and his downtrodden protagonists emerge triumphant by enduring seemingly endless humiliations. And yet the Little Mermaid has worldly ambitions that suggest more than silent suffering. Drawn to the upper world, she is eager to sail the seas, climb the mountains, and explore forbidden territory. Donning boys' clothing, she goes horseback riding with the prince, transgressing gender boundaries in unprecedented ways. And for all her passion for adventure and life, she is, despite her pagan nature, a creature of compassion, unwilling to sacrifice the prince's life for her own. To gain full mobility in the human world, Andersen's mermaid must sacrifice her voice to the sea witch, a figure who in her linkage with biological corruption and grotesque sensuality is diametrically opposed to the promise of eternal salvation. The marsh in which she resides and the bones of the human folk supporting her house all point to a regime that emphatically displays human mortality and bodily decay. Initially attracted to what the sea witch can provide, and willing to brave the dangers of a visit to her abode, the Little Mermaid ultimately renounces her black arts when she flings the knife meant for the prince into the sea, and is rewarded with the possibility of earning immortality. Point 1. I'm going to read the points before I read the story. Down there live the sea people. The underwater realm of the sea people is described as a benign paradise, something of a parallel universe, but with more leisure and natural beauty. Disney's Little Mermaid, known by the name Ariel, lives in a realm in which the undersea people seem to do little more than sing and dance. But remember, this book was written a long time before Disney existed. 2.2 in the story, the Castle of the Sea King. The underwater monarchy may be a utopia in which art, song, dance and spectacle meets natural beauty, but it also has strict hierarchical distinctions, as becomes clear from the number of oysters worn on the tail of the Sea King's mother. The Arthur Rackham did a drawing of the Little Mermaid in 1932. The pleasures of the aquatic world become evident in this roping scene, in which three of the sisters are playing games in their oceanic paradise. Then in 1911, Edmund Dulac did a beautiful painting of the Little Mermaid. And in 1932, this is my favourite drawing of it, Jeannie Harbour did a beautiful painting of the mermaid. It was absolutely glorious. The Sea King had been a widower for some years, and his aged mother kept house for him. She was an intelligent woman, but proud when it came to see her noble birth. That is why she wore 12 oysters on her tail, while everyone else of high rank had to settle for 6. The king feeds his subjects in his undersea realm. All this is in photographs and paintings that have been done. As unhappy fish swim beneath her, the Little Mermaid contemplates the bubbles rising to the surface of the ocean, hair streaming through the waters and tail decorated with flowers. She dreams of another life. So point 3 in the story, a strange blue glow permeated everything in sight. Blue and red are the dominant colours in the narrative, the one associated with the depths of the sea and the heights of the heavens, the other linked with sunlight, passion, suffering and blood. Point 4 in the book, the story, the youngest made hers quite round like the sun. The Little Mermaid's aspirations are clear early on. She is upwardly mobile, reaching for the sun and striving to transcend her nature. And over the page we have another picture Arthur Rackham did of the Little Mermaid in 1932. It's completely different to what one would expect, but it's really beautiful. She's embracing the statue, and the Little Mermaid blends into the marble forms of the human world, even as her hair becomes one with the elements in the undersea world. And the next one, by William Heath Robinson in 1913, of the Little Mermaid, is very strange. The Little Mermaid's longing for the human world is expressed in her devotion to the statue kept under water. The statuesque prince has the look of a classical god, actually a Greek god, who delights in children sporting about him. So we'll see if there's any more over the other page. And on point 5, a flock of wild swans flew like a long white veil across the water. For Andersen, who wrote this, swans are creatures that move from a state of gawky awkwardness to one of majestic splendour, as in his story, The Ugly Duckling. Like butterflies, the romantic symbol par excellence for transcendence and transformation. They are able to metamorphosize into a higher state. The transformation of the Little Mermaid from sea creature to mermaid in human form to a creature of the air reflects Andersen's constant engagement with mutability and changes in identity. And point 6, they had lovely voices. Having a voice and the ability to display its art figure importantly in this tale, that the Little Mermaid later loses her voice, the power to express herself, reveals the drawbacks of the exchange made with the sea witch. The mermaid's voice, even though it has emotive strength, is linked above all with artistic expression. It is what makes her appealing to both merfolk and humans. Point 7 in the book, story, rocking up and down so that she could look in the cabin. The Little Mermaid's curiosity about human beings draws her to the world of the prince. Fascinated by what is above the surface, by the unknown, by the forbidden, she shows an investigative curiosity lacking in many fairy tale heroines. She is rather curious. Then, in 1911, Edmund Dulac also did a beautiful, fascinating painting of the Little Mermaid. His limbs were failing him, his beautiful eyes were closed, and he would certainly have drowned if the Little Mermaid had not come to his rescue. With his head only slightly above water, the prince is rescued by the mermaid in a spectacular ocean of blues and foam. So that's quite lovely. Then on point 8, there was so much that she would have liked to know. The Little Mermaid is a creature intent on broadening her horizon. What she sees on earth stimulates her desire for challenges. She wants above all to explore the world and to discover what is beyond the realm of home. In point 9 in the book, we lack an immortal soul and we shall never have another life. Andersen was deeply invested in conveying Christian messages about immortal souls and eternal life, even as he and his characters clearly delighted in worldly pleasures. It's quite a long story, The Mermaid. So point 10, a house is built with the bones of shipwrecked human folk, like the Russian Baba Yaga and the witches of other folklore regimes. The sea witch has a house constructed of human bones, affiliated with the grotesque and the monstrous. Her realm is one of decay, death, and destruction. Point 11, enough to make your feet bleed. Feet and footwear figure prominently in fairy tales, but are especially central to Andersen's stories, perhaps inspired by the example of Snow White's stepmother, who dances to death in red-hot iron shoes. Andersen, the son of a shoemaker, often located suffering in the feet of his protagonists, like Karen in the red shoes. The Little Mermaid must endure agonizing pain while dancing. So point 12 in the Little Mermaid, put out your little tongue and let me cut it off as my payment. That the Little Mermaid loses the ability to speak and sacrifices her voice for the promise of love has been read as the fatal bargain women make in Andersen's culture and in our own. But the mermaid's willingness to give up her voice is driven not only by her love for the prince, but also by her desire to enter a richer and more enriching domain, one that will allow a greater range and play for her adventurous spirit. Point 13. She cut off the Little Mermaid's tongue. Like Philomela in Ovid's Metamorphoses, the Little Mermaid loses the power to speak and sing. How sad. 14. Just throw a single drop of this potion on them, and their arms and fingers will be torn into 1,000 pieces. That sounds a bit horrendous. The instructions of the Sea Witch foreshadow the brutal act later proposed by the Little Mermaid's sisters. In both cases, the Little Mermaid abstains from violence. The first time because it is not necessary. The second time because she makes a deliberate decision to do no harm. She sounds sweet. 15. Rose up through the dark blue waters, a motherless child. The Little Mermaid rises up to join the world of humans and to find her bridegroom. Unlike Persephone, who is carried off by a bridegroom into nether regions and rescued by her mother, she is on her own. So point 16 in the Little Mermaid, her fishtail was gone. The metamorphosis of the Little Mermaid moves her from the realm of sea creatures to that of humans. Unlike most fairy tale heroes and heroines who undergo transformations from the human to the bestial, the Little Mermaid is a hybrid figure, half animal and half beast. Her transformation, like that of the seal maidens and swan maidens of Scandinavian folklore, is reversible, but at some cost, as the ending to the story reveals. Point 17 of the Little Mermaid. Oh, there is a beautiful drawing on the left by Edmond Dulac of the Little Mermaid, made in 1911, where she's got her legs and no fishtail. The prince asked who she was and how she'd come there. She couldn't talk, could she? And she only could gaze back at him sweetly and sadly with her deep blue eyes, for of course she could not speak. The prince, wearing oriental garb and leaning against a pillar, gazes down at the girl who's been washed up on the steps, though he doesn't know she's a mermaid and she can't speak. So 17. On a velvet cushion, sleeping outside the prince's door, on a cushion, implies that the Little Mermaid is something of a waif, an exotic pet for the prince. 18. The prince had a page's costume made for her. The critics who bemoan the self-effacing nature of the Little Mermaid often neglect to note that she is also more adventurous, spirited and curious than most fairy tale heroines. Cross-dressing is a sign of her willingness to transgress gender boundaries and to take risks in order to see the world. Edmund Dulac did another painting in 1911 of the Little Mermaid. With a last glance at the prince from eyes half dim in death, she threw herself from the ship into the sea and felt her body dissolve into foam. Bearing a distinct resemblance to Ophelia, the Little Mermaid perishes in the element that was once her home. And then there's another drawing painting with a beautiful ship in it. Honor C. Appleton made that beautiful painting in The Little Mermaid in 1922. The Little Mermaid saw that she had a body like theirs, and that she was rising higher and higher out of the foam. The rising sun heralds the rebirth of the Little Mermaid, who, as a daughter of the air, can earn an immortal soul by performing good deeds for 300 years. Point 19 of the Little Mermaid. You too can earn yourself an immortal soul. The 300 years of good deeds mark the lifespan of merfolk. The Little Mermaid herself has achieved immortality in the real world, not only through her story, but also through the bronze statue of her that has become Copenhagen's most popular tourist attraction. I've been there and seen that. It's beautiful. So, we're now on to 20, which is the last one, the comments on The Little Mermaid, before I start reading it in another video. It's too long to put it in this one. Every tear adds one more day to our time of trial. The conclusion adds a disciplinary twist to the tale, suggesting to the children outside the book that an invisible presence monitors their behavior. This lesson can be far more frightening than the descriptions of the tortures to which the Little Mermaid is subjected. So that has described to you what you're going to hear when I read the story of the Little Mermaid in a few minutes in another video, but you must hear this one first because you might not want to hear it. It might be too gory or something. But anyway, God bless you all. Thank you for listening. So I'm going to read the story in a minute.